Now it's time for RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester.
Hey everybody, Ken Chester here in studio for another wonderful information-packed hour of RoadWorthy Drive behind the scenes. Here in studio with the usual suspects, Jack, the designated adult at the controls.
Hello.
Sasha holding it down at mic 2, and of course yours truly. In addition to our usual rummaging,
Okay.
rummaging around through the parts bin, we're going to dedicate the whole show today, this hour, to what happened down in Arizona. If you've been living under a rock or you don't know, an fully autonomous Uber hit and killed a woman crossing the street. It is, to our knowledge, the first fully autonomous vehicle death due to the autonomous vehicle. We're going to look into that. We're going to talk about a lot of things, some things you already know, some things you might not have known, and where this goes from here. Does this stop it? Does this require a reset? Is the feds or the states going to get involved and just regulate the daylights out of it? We'll talk about all of that here. So during this hour, it's all about Uber, driverless cars, and our future on RoadWorthy Drive Behind the Scenes. We're glad you could be with us. Thank you for joining us. 11 minutes, Jack.
11
Sasha,
minutes,
you
sir.
set?
We are set.
Let's do it.
Let's rock and roll.
It's party time.
Do you want to go faster? Yeah!
It's time for RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester. Ken is a nationally syndicated automotive journalist and photographer who has been in and around the industry for over 30 years. So tune in for your fill of automotive information and entertainment with your automotive ringmaster, Ken Chester.
Welcome to RoadWorthy Drive. I'm your host and automotive tour guide for the hour, Ken Chester. So glad you could join us. RoadWorthy Drive is the place to get your weekly dose of breaking automotive news of consumer interest, timely automotive technology updates, and so much more. An hour spent with me each week will make you a better consumer and a more aware driver. For those of you that have a question or comment, or you just want to add your voice to the conversation at hand, call or text me via the RoadWorthy Drive line, that number, 872-222-9793. That number is good anytime. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If email is your thing, my address is ken@roadworthydrive.com. And yeah, I do check my email on a regular basis. In either case, I'd love to hear from you. Now, before I rummage around for news tidbits from the parts bin, let me introduce you to the other members of the in-studio RoadWorthy Drive crew. Our resident curmudgeon at the controls, my friend and RoadWorthy Drive executive producer, Jack, and currently armed and dangerous with the facts, holding it down at mic 2, our very own sweet and sassy social media diva, Sasha. Howdy, my peoples. And they're quiet. Wow, really?
I just can't.
Is that what I'm getting now? I'm getting no love for my own crew?
No. Number one, I am not the resident curmudgeon. Because I have a very strong opinion, does not mean that I'm a curmudgeon.
What?
I'm still trying to get over the my peoples.
Yeah, so am I.
Wait a minute. I got one question now.
Okay.
I want to know why the designated adult in the room gets to sit and we got to stand. Can you answer that for me, Sasha?
No, I can.
Yeah.
They got me a better chair.
Oh, look at that.
That's what happens. That's what happens when he meets with the suits. See,
Yeah.
I knew there was some other stuff going on.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Yeah, see, he meets with the suits, he gets a chair. We don't meet with the suits, we get to stand.
I was actually going to say that because I have been standing, that someone decided to, copycat.
That he had to stand.
Right.
So, yeah.
No, they told me
That's the story. That's the story we'll go with.
Thank you.
Is that the
Thank
story
you.
you're sticking with? Yep. All right. See,
Okay, but
I see how y'all are.
What is in the parts bin this week?
Okay, Buick.
Okay.
Here's the question. Wouldn't you really rather have a Buick? The name on your vehicle.
To me, yes. The biggest thing that I don't like about what's on the vehicle is normally the dealer sticker.
Ooh, ouch.
Now, see, I would rather have a completely decal-free vehicle.
Well, now you realize that is an option in a lot of European vehicles.
Right.
No, I did not know that.
Where you can actually order the vehicle without any decals.
Yeah.
But then again, you have to remember with the European vehicles, you literally have to order the vehicle, period.
Indeed. Yeah, I remember seeing pages and pages and pages of trim for just one Porsche model.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
To get back to the point at hand, Buick is actually taking the Buick name off of their cars in the United States starting next year.
Will they still have the trim level
They-
or the model?
They will, but the issue is they'll still have the badge, the Tri-Shield badge on the vehicle.
Right.
Okay.
It won't have the word Buick. Their point, well, in the largest market in which we sell, which is China, by the way,
All right.
we don't put the Buick name on our vehicles. And their words were, and I quote, global consistency,
I like it.
which was Buick's spokesman. I'm sorry, a Buick is a Buick is a Buick. That should have the name Buick on it because it's a Buick.
I mean, can't you just look at the picture and know that it's
No.
a Buick?
Not
No.
always. Although they said, and this is Buick saying this, recent research showed that consumers do recognize the brand Shield badge
Yep.
as a Buick.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm a little old school. If I'm going to own a Buick, it needs
That's
to
redundant.
say Buick.
It's redundancy. No.
Automakers have been doing that for years. Name and their little, Chryslers have had their, Divisions have had their own badges. Plymouth had
You know what
theirs,
else?
and Chrysler had theirs, and still had the name on the vehicle.
You know what else they did for years? They didn't put in seat belts.
Wow.
I'm just saying,
Wow.
times change.
No.
makers
That's
change.
federal law, sister.
Now it is.
Yeah, 1968 it was.
Thank you.
Yeah. Seatbelts have nothing to do with advertising. If I spent the money for a Buick, I want it to say Buick.
And I would have to agree with you.
Okay, moving along. All right. Here's something that could be troublesome. There is a bill in Congress that is to end the corn ethanol mandate by 2030.
Really?
Yeah. They want to eliminate the amount of ethanol blended under the renewable fuel standard, which was passed back in 2007, by reducing the amount of corn ethanol blended into gasoline by 2 billion gallons a year until the requirement's eliminated in 2030. As a matter of fact, there's a move afoot even to interrupt E15, which some people are arguing is kind of a forced way to meet the standard. Now, in case you don't know what E15 is, if you're not from the upper Midwest, it is actually a blend of 15% ethanol. 15% ethanol to 85% gasoline. The issue with that, a number of vehicles, and it really depends on the manufacturer, can or cannot run it because it's additional 5%. Now, up here in the upper Midwest, we've been running 10% ethanol for years with no problems. I've been running it for years, still continue to run it. I've never had a problem with it. 15% was designed to help ethanol producers. Now, there are advantages to the ethanol. Your vehicle runs cleaner. Your engine runs cooler.
Yep.
And it's renewable.
Yep.
Which these days, that part of it's less an issue from getting rid of foreign oil because we've become, and we've reported it here, a leading producer again of crude oil.
Okay, but by 2030, are we going to be in a position where gas and ethanol really may not begin to start mattering?
I don't think it's going to be that quick.
Okay.
I think that you will see a sliding scale, and the ironic thing to do is that the oil producers are in the same boat. It's not so much eliminating ethanol, but crude oil producers, the irony of it is, as we grow in production to become number one in the world, we are actually working to use less of it.
Well, this is the thing that surprises me because I know big oil. I've watched them through the years, and usually when they feel threatened, they go after the threat very, very hard.
Yes, they do.
And they're not going after the threat that hard
They
right
are.
now.
They are, but technology has overtaken them. Congress, number one, and we will talk about this in a future show, about the legislation with regards to changing the mandate on fuel economy standards. But we're growing electric cars. We've got a tightening emissions requirement, not just in the United States, but China and around the world. And what the automakers are trying to do is get set up so that, again, because they make their money on volume, they can spread the cost of all this technology over the greatest number of vehicles. So if they can get common standards, they can engineer for lowest possible cost per unit. And right now, China's pushing for stringent standards, so is the rest of Europe. The United States, to a lesser degree, pushing for stricter emission standards. That means that they've got to get away from the internal combustion engine because it can only get so clean, and they're pretty clean right now.
Right.
The problem is, still with the stricter standards, not clean enough. And I was told 20 years ago by a GM engineer, they said, we measured this stuff in Warren, this was in the mid-1990s, on some days under certain conditions, the amount of pollutants are below our instrument's ability to measure it.
Oh.
We needed new tools because the EPA standards were stricter than that. This was 20 years ago. And now it's stricter than that.
Yep.
So I think that that is something to be aware of, mainly if you're from the upper Midwest or if you're a corn farmer, that's something you might want to track because that has some real consequences. Now, oil is pushing on that, but they are pushing on several different fronts. So even though it may not be newsworthy, of course, you come here, we're the ones who are going to tell you. You're going to find out about it here.
Well, yeah, and overall, with where we live, we have radio stations that do a lot of farm broadcasting. That this stuff really does matter.
Let me throw something out before we go to break right here. Would you believe a Swiss police department in Switzerland is buying Tesla Model X crossovers for police cars?
What?
No.
Yes. Very quickly, their average diesel-powered patrol vehicle costs $97,000.
Wow.
These Model X P100Ds they're planning to buy, configured for police use, will be $147,000, but they expect to save money, the difference in diesel fuel. When we return, the Roadworthy Drive crew discusses the progress and current limitations of the self-driving revolution in light of reporting the first recorded death of a pedestrian by a self-driving car in Arizona. You're listening to Roadworthy Drive.
This is Roadworthy Drive.
Yeah, I thought you'd like that Model X. The thing that kills me, the Model X has been widely panned as one of the most unreliable Teslas they make. Yet these guys are getting ready to use it in what I consider severe service. If it's a patrol car, that's severe service across the board. Long periods of standing running, which might be different if it's an electric car. It won't necessarily be running when at rest, unlike a gasoline or diesel-powered car that may have to run, throw off heat. Idle is not good for the engine, typically. These vehicles, you wouldn't have to idle.
True.
So it should be interesting to see how they do. They were ordering, let me finish that before we give up. They were going to order, they're ordering 7 in the initial order. And let's see, the remaining fleet, and they don't say how many, to be delivered in 2019. As for why the Model X was selected in the end, they cited its ecological benefits as well as cost savings over the life of the vehicle, as well as its storage capacity.
We're talking battery storage, correct?
It did not mention that. It was not clear.
Or are they talking about cargo storage?
They didn't say. They said storage capacity. They didn't say whether it was battery capacity in terms of mileage, which doesn't sound right. I would argue probably cargo.
Okay.
Okay.
I would argue that.
I have to go back to when we were talking about gasoline and how as we move to be the top producer of oil.
In less than 5 years.
You realize that the only reason why we are getting that position is because everyone else is backing out?
No.
That is seriously.
No.
Like it has nothing to do with the fact.
What it has to do is that the fact that with technology and the discovery of how to extract this stuff, we figured out how to get more out of one, old fields, and two, how to profitably develop new fields. The irony is we're bringing all this online just as the economy is going, meh. with respect to cars and vehicles. And I even saw a story about an electric barge, an electric ferry boat.
Yeah. I mean, and there was another story this week that I want to say was in the Washington Post, where it was talking exactly about, everybody's hyping up the America production of oil, but by the same token, we are not producing in the numbers of the former top producers of oil.
But yet we are, though.
I'm just saying.
Okay, here's a question that I have.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when we get electric commercial airplanes?
So much awesomeness.
Well, and in fact, I saw a piece on that a while back.
Hold on. Here's my question. How many people are going to flipping freak out?
Why?
Why?
When you don't hear the damn engine.
Why?
Why?
I mean, why does it matter?
Why do we freak out now when we don't hear a gasoline engine in a car and the car is moving?
We don't necessarily freak out. And for the record, a lot of automakers have actually built noise into the car.
Yeah.
So you hear it coming.
Yeah.
No, seriously.
Yeah. Yeah.
For that very reason. I wouldn't be freaked out. I mean, what people forget, railroad engines have been hybrids for 70 years.
Yeah.
But they also have an air horn.
Yeah, that they can't use in a lot of places, by the way. Noise reduction.
Yeah, but, okay, the airplane, why would you want to hear the engine? I mean, it's on a runway where, it's not like with trains where they have to bypass where people are driving other vehicles, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, because the train tracks will cross roads and stuff like that, and some people decide to be less educated about that.
The only thing that would frighten me about flying an electric airplane is if it's not flying and falling. That's the only problem I got. As long as it's flying, taking off or landing, we're good. If suddenly, then I got a problem.
The fall's not so bad. It's just that sudden
stop. Yeah. And I don't think that concern would be just focused on if it was an electric plane. I think you would have that same concern if it was, jet.
Any kind of plane, amen.
Right?
Point taken.
Yeah. Now, Champion or the other one?
Hold on. I've got all kinds of paperwork.
Again, he wasn't listening in the production meeting.
I wrote the production meeting. Champion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Of course, some people. Some people get meetings with the suits and they get to sit down.
Just
let it go, let it go, let it go.
No, this ain't.
Need to get that music cue.
This ain't Frozen.
I gotta find.
We've got to do that music cue. That would be. You've got a chair back there. You could feel free to sit down.
2 hours of you and I in the studio. What would he have to worry about at all?
Right. Yeah, we've done it before.
What could possibly go wrong?
It went just fine. I mean, I did the wrong acronym, but
what could possibly go wrong, right?
Exactly. Ready?
9 minutes?
9
minutes.
Okay, people. 9 minutes.
Most winners of major races use Champion spark plugs because Champions have no equal for performance. Every major U.S. airline uses Champion because Champions have no equal for dependability. Every major maker of fire engines in the U.S. uses Champion spark plugs because you can count on Champions for quick starts. Volkswagen uses Champion spark plugs because Champions give real gasoline economy. Rolls-Royce specifies Champion spark plugs because Champions have no equal for quality. In fact, twice as many car makers the world over specify Champion spark plugs. So for your next spark plug change, insist on Champions.
Yeah, Jack and Sasha unsupervised in the studio. What could possibly go wrong?
There's nothing that's going to go wrong. You may not like it, but there will be nothing wrong with it.
The key word there is supervision.
He is the adult.
I am the adult in the room. So what's the problem?
Excuse me. Designated adult.
Right.
Thank you very much. Designated. There's a difference.
Okay, either I'm the adult or I'm not. Welcome back to RoadWorthy Drive. Mr. Chester, follow the script.
Wait a minute. There's a script?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Some people just are no fun.
Do your thing.
Oh, my goodness. That's scary. You might regret saying that. Folks, if you're just tuning in, this is a special hour of RoadWorthy Drive, if you couldn't figure that out already. We're just special all over the place in here. I'm your host for the hour, Ken Chester. Now, over the last several weeks, if you've been paying attention, you may have heard about a woman pedestrian being hit and killed by a self-driving Uber vehicle. That's in Arizona. Well, this is certainly not the start of some sci-fi filler in the realm of the rise of the machines. It has indeed forced a pause across the industry as industry leaders and federal safety officials investigate the accident to determine exactly what happened. Just so that we're clear, even in a perfect world where there's a full implementation of self-driving vehicle tech that functions perfectly, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration estimates that the technology is not a 100% solution. So even if everything breaks right, you're not going to get, and fully implemented, you're not going to get 100% reduction in traffic highway deaths.
That's
just
true.
so we're clear.
Yep.
The number is still impressive, though. They estimate a reduction in deaths from accidents of 80%. Down. So that but unfortunately, that means that between 7,000 and 8,000 people a year will still die in traffic deaths, but that's down from between 35,000 to 40,000 currently. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay, hang on for a second.
Yeah.
There's a question that I want to ask at this point. Are we in a position where something or someone or a group of someones are pushing the technology faster than the technology can be created?
No.
Here's why I'm asking that question, Ken, and I don't necessarily agree with you. Everybody says, we have the technology, we can drive this car, it can drive itself. And then we have something like this happen,
Okay.
which is a mistake. You know, I feel terrible for the lady and her family over this, but to me, we're pushing the technology faster than it should be.
Okay, but
This should be 2 or 3 more years down the road after they've had some more time with it in testing it.
here's the thing. The problem is there's always teething challenges with any new technology.
Yeah.
Anything. I mean, the car with the internal combustion engine wasn't perfect when it was out there. There's no yardstick to say, oh, well, 2 or 3 more years will be ready. What's going to happen, and what is happening now, is this is being developed in the vacuum of leadership by the feds. Now, NHTSA, which is the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, can only go so far, and they've issued their guidelines. But remember, their guidelines, they're trying to herd the industry in that direction. They've asked Congress for some additional oversight capability, but they're at the edge of what they can legally do. Now, I don't think it's necessarily always a bad thing that Congress, takes a little time. I mean, things are changing so rapidly. Should there be guidelines, maybe called on the carpet? We will talk in the next segment about the specifics of Uber's little experiment. When I dug into it, it seems Uber, apart from the other people who were doing this, had some unique problems that they weren't addressing.
Oh.
Some very specific problems they were not addressing.
Okay, so
So let me answer your question, and I'm going to answer it very narrow.
okay.
In Uber's case, in a regulation light environment like Arizona, which doesn't even require certain basic information that even California requires for the vehicles they have on the road, are not required in Arizona. Like, for example, how many times in autonomous mode did the driver have to take over? Not disclosed in Arizona. It's not legally required, but it is in California. Let me give you an example really quick.
Okay.
According to reporting, Waymo, which has millions upon millions of miles, they were first. They will tell you, according to their California filings, that they get roughly 5,600 miles per event. In other words, of the 63 events they had covering so many millions of miles, averaged out to be about 5,600 miles before a driver had to take control for some reason, or a driver control event. Uber, 13 miles. Yeah,
I'd say they've got a bigger problem. Sasha, you were going to say something.
I think that we're losing the topic here. I mean, there's going to be accidents. There's going to be things that just glitch. There's going to be circumstances that arise that it just happens, and that's why they're called accidents and not on purposes.
Are we getting to the point now of where they were back in the 30s, the 40s, and the 50s with the airplane and they're crashing, and we're just going to have to come down to a simple reality of,
it's trial and error.
You may be in that position.
Let me cut to the quick.
Okay.
Automotive vehicles were on the road for almost 70 years before Congress required seatbelts.
So basically what you're saying is we're not going to catch everything the first time.
No. It took a Highway Safety Act passed by Congress in 1965. Cars have been on the road for over 60 years in ever-increasing numbers before we started getting serious about emissions, before we started getting serious about safety. The motor vehicle, as we know it today, is probably one of the most heavily regulated devices that we interact with on a regular basis. It is full of regulation. So my question is, compared to what? Is it too fast? We may need to look at what and do some better requirements of certain things. We'll talk about that in the next segment. But I don't agree that we're going too fast. Because, again, against what? So, when I come back, our conversation continues about current self-driving technology. Just where we at anyway? RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester is heard exclusively on the RoadWorthy Drive Radio Network.
This is RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester.
Let me point out a few things that we didn't get a chance to cover in the segment.
Okay.
The vehicle involved was a Volvo XC90, and according to the New York Times piece that I'm quoting from, outfitted with the company's sensing system. Now, what most people may not know, Volvo led the industry with something called city safety with pedestrian detection. That's part of the system. If you walked into a Volvo dealer today, bought a Volvo that was not autonomous, had been enhanced by Uber or Waymo or anything,
right,
it would have city safety with pedestrian detection. Now, I did call Volvo because I wanted to ask them. I was not able to get a response. It was late, in fairness to them, because I wanted to know, was their system the one that was active, or was it deactivated in favor of the more sensitive Uber enhancements?
Right.
That was my question. According to this article, they don't specifically say that. They say the company's sensing system. I have to assume they're talking about city safety with pedestrian detection.
Okay.
I will also add that since Volvo pioneered it, they're not the only company that has it. An increasing number of luxury cars have something similar.
Okay.
Well, and is it one of those things, and like I said, I don't know the answer to this, is this one of those things where the two systems, let's say they were both active, could it been something that they had they canceled each other out in this one instance?
No. Understand that the enhancements for autonomous vehicles include a suite of sensors, both light sensors and motion sensors and cameras. It's not just one thing.
Did their system have LiDAR on it?
Yes.
Okay. One of the questions that I heard from somebody this week, and I think it was a gal that does a computer show, she said, why didn't the LiDAR catch it?
Okay. My point simply, and I go back to statistics, I don't care what you got. There are some accidents that even technology will not prevent.
I mean, she did literally come out of nowhere.
I mean, if you're running and it says you're running just under 40 miles an hour, typically they say you got nanoseconds to process, respond, and brake. If anything, and I want to get into this when we get back on the air,
Okay.
it calls into question the very value of a safety driver.
Yeah.
If the computer, which is responding faster than you can, malfunctions, what makes you think you will be able to resolve anything? Because, one, even if you're, and here's the other thing, they require, Waymo does, and Uber's supposed to, not just drivers being in the seat, but either having their hands hovering on the wheel, ready to take charge. They need to be in a state of constant readiness. We've reported here that the problem with autonomous vehicles is because it's monotonous, people fall asleep.
Yep.
Again, I'm saving the goodies for the next segment.
Okay.
Because I've got a few things to talk about on that subject. So, there's just situations. I mean, we've got analog brakes now. Analog brakes can stop faster than we could on our own. We've got stability control. We've got lane change mitigation and all this other suite of technology that if you own a car that's 4 years old or newer, you probably have. The thing is, in spite of the best technology, there are some situations it's no-win. No matter what you do and how you choose to do it, there are some situations that nature, rock slides, bridge failure, deer, moosin', whatever, jumps out in front of you. Even if the thing braked hard, it's still going to hit it. And it may be too late because it came at such an angle by the time the sensors picked it up, it had already hit you. I had that happen.
Yeah, you did.
There was no way an autonomous car would have picked that up because the angle, the deer came up out the wash, and he hit me kind of behind. There had been no way. No physical way, even with surround view. And even if the vehicle saw him coming, which would have been nanoseconds, nothing they could have done. So,
do you think that some people are expecting way too much out of this technology now?
It depends. The people that are dealing with the technology, I would say no. I mean, it's a push.
I'm sorry, average consumer. Or what you've seen this week in the media coverage of this story.
Yes. And I think it's because they're not informed about the technology.
I think it's misinformation. I don't know that people are expecting anything because for most people, even though we talk about it on a regular basis, it's a clean slate to most people. Walk into any restaurant, pick a conversation, say the words autonomous car, see what they know. You will find it's precious little. And I'm not being judgmental or negative towards anybody, but this is new to a lot of people. Remember, we talked about maybe 3-4 weeks ago, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety says the safety features, once introduced, take roughly 30 years to reach about 95% of the vehicles on the road.
Okay, I remember that.
If you extrapolate that, most people are coming to grips right now with traction control, stability control, and analog brakes. Analog brakes have been around for almost 30 years.
Yeah, there's still people that absolutely positively will tell you they need four-wheel drive just because they haven't experienced what traction control is
and stability control
on a two-wheel drive.
That is true.
You ready?
Hold on.
But I do think that today, the average person today has unfair expectations for the technology because they don't understand the technology.
I would argue that they're not that far along, Sasha. I don't think people have expectations. They hear stuff in the news, but as far as do they even know? If you ask, and maybe the question that we need to be asking, does the average consumer, consumers perhaps that are not listening to our program, do they know if you ask them what is an autonomous car?
Poll question.
Okay. What do you want it?
Pick something with, how do I want to say this?
Carefully.
what are your expectations with a self-driving car? And then come up with A, B, C, D, and E being none of the above.
I would make it simpler than that.
Go ahead.
What is an autonomous car? And give them choices.
What is an autonomous car, and then give them choices.
Yeah.
Yep.
How would you define what an autonomous car is? Now, that's a kind of tortured way of saying it, but that's where I'm going. And we'll give them 5 choices.
All right, but
Go ahead.
I still think the last one needs to be fill in your own definition.
No, because that's all over the place.
I want it to be all over the place because the point is that we need to give these people a way to actually respond back to not necessarily what Jack, you, or I would say for autonomous vehicles, but they need to have one option there that would give their own.
Take it out of a poll. Ask your question this way. What is your definition of an autonomous car?
Right.
Yeah.
And then look at the responses.
Yeah, because here's the thing. I contend.
Watch out for that.
Yeah. I contend the average driver on the road today, regardless of age, regardless of gender, regardless of strata, education, whatever, really does not understand what it is, which has been my crusade for now 3 years of trying to educate people of what an autonomous vehicle is.
With words like autopilot.
Yeah. And there are people out there, and the press has done it less so now, that actually said autonomous. And autopilot, Super Cruise are not autonomous cars.
No.
You know that. I know that. But when somebody hears autopilot, they think of the airline industry and the planes flying.
But that's the question we want to ask. Okay, 9 minutes.
9 minutes.
Third segment. Are we ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, people, let's do this.
I was born ready.
Oh, boy.
I was born.
No. Okay.
That was my fault.
Okay.
Computer doing all sorts of weird things today.
Welcome to the second half of this special hour of RoadWorthy Drive. I'm your not-so-humble host, Ken Chester.
Amen.
Oh,
Amen.
wow.
Amen.
Wow. Haters in studio.
No, just acknowledgers of truth.
Thank you.
Whatever. Speak to the hand. Anyway, folks, thank you for dropping in. I know you're with me. In light of a recent death of a pedestrian by a self-driving car in Arizona, I wanted to dedicate this hour of our show to take a deeper look at the self-driving industry as a whole. Now, those of you that are not watching us live on YouTube missed a very spirited conversation with respect to what is an autonomous car exactly. Jack was questioning whether or not the technology is being pushed too far. Sasha and I are wondering if the average consumer, the average motorist, even can identify it. And do you realize, shocker, not to listeners of this show, but to some people, shocker, Tesla's autopilot is not full autonomy.
No, it's
Cadillac's Super Cruise is not full autonomy.
We know that, but they don't know it.
Exactly.
Spoiler alert, it's also not a self-driving car.
Thank you. Sure ain't. Now, before I even continue to that subject, and we're going to get deeper into it, hey, be sure to check out our show website. That's roadworthydrive.com. Listen to past shows. Watch video of our weekly in-studio antics, debate, conversation, and downright throwing things, maybe, and more. The website is also a great place to find out what we're talking about between shows in the universe of social media. Sasha is our social media diva who keeps things fun and informative during the week. Between shows, see how she keeps the social in our social media. You will be glad you did.
Sasha, have either one of us thrown a shoe yet?
I mean...
Isn't that known as the Bush treatment?
No.
Yes.
Someone who is standing next to me tried to one time, and then we stopped him because we were warned of the stink that might come off.
Wow.
With the footwear removed.
And can move on.
Wow. In the words of the designated adult in the room, I got nothing.
I know.
Not a thing. All right. Conversation for this segment is focused on where the technology is currently. We've reported here, for example, that there are 300 firms and companies around the world working on this right now. They're spending billions of dollars. One example, General Motors bought an outfit called Cruise Automation for $1 billion. Cruise Automation hadn't even been in business 5 years just to get the technology they knew.
Yep.
Ford did the same thing. A lot of automakers, to ramp up quickly, are buying companies because they're buying the talent. They're buying what these engineers know and their experience. And it's a quick way to help infuse that knowledge into their legacy systems. So a lot of that's going on. But I wanted to talk about Uber in particular, because as I started looking at this, the closer I looked, the more it seemed that Uber had some very special problems of their own. Let me lay the groundwork here.
Okay.
We know, you should know, right now today, federally, there's no federal government standards for this stuff. NHTSA has issued guidelines and cybersecurity guidelines, but as far as rulemaking, because of how long it takes to go through the rulemaking process, we're not there. So you've got states, everything from New York and their one-year experiment to California with their documentation, which we covered here, to Arizona, which they like because it is a lightly regulated environment.
Air quotes, by the way.
Yeah, air quotes. That means we can do what we want.
Okay, so what kind of issues were Uber having?
Well, I'm going to get to that, but I want to still paint this.
Okay.
I'm still painting on this canvas, different canvas. There. Yeah.
It is the future of mobility, though.
Let it go. If I got to let it go, you got to let it go for now.
We really need
We're not
that
talking
music,
about
yeah.
that right now, Sasha. Alphabet's Waymo self-driving car unit has underscored a report that its autonomous vehicles have now logged 5 million miles in real-world testing and billions more in computer simulation. Now, GM's Cruise Automation, we just talked about, highlighted its decision to teach its driving system. That's basically artificial intelligence. AI plays a big part in this stuff because it's machine learning.
Right.
It's not just programming it. It's introducing the machine to situations where it learns from the situations it encompasses. Now, how do you go and guarantee that you have a technology that the probability of fatality per hour, I'm sorry, let me read this again. How do you go, this is the question, and guarantee that you have a technology that the probability of fatality per 1 hour of driving is 1,000 times better than a human? That's where you're asking.
And that's where we're at right now.
Right.
The greater risk for the industry is that if people feel it is unsafe or the testing is unsafe, you will see a real backlash against this technology. You notice that the problem did not happen with an automaker.
No, correct. However, the backlash has already been happening this week.
Until you see regulation at the federal level, so much. Let me talk really quick in the time coming up to the break about Uber's special problems. Uber's cars were having trouble driving through construction zones and next to tall vehicles like big rigs. And the human drivers had to intervene far more frequently than drivers of competing autonomous car projects. Waymo said at its test in roads in California last year that its cars went an average of nearly 5,600 miles before the driver had to take control from the computer to steer out of trouble. As of March, Uber was struggling to meet its target of 13 miles per intervention in Arizona. These are private documents obtained by the New York Times. This is not public information.
Which leads me to the question, how did they get them?
Well, they didn't say that. They're company documents obtained by the New York Times and two people familiar with the company's operations in the Phoenix area, but were not permitted to speak publicly about it.
Yeah, I have a huge
They were under pressure to impress the new boss. So they took shortcuts.
Oh my goodness.
They used to have two people in the car. one to take over in case the computer had a problem,
Right.
the other one to check the computer and
To
see what
monitor
the
the
computer was
computers.
doing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uber, trying to speed it up, went to one, which also added, if you've got someone else in the vehicle, you can at least talk to them, stay awake.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some Uber folks actually got fired for not doing their jobs. They're supposed to have their hands hovering over the steering wheel.
Well, and if you look, I only saw part of the video that they showed of the guy sitting in the driver's seat.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't watch the whole thing.
This is what it's supposed to happen. It also appeared that the driver's hands were not hovering above the steering wheel, which is what drivers are instructed to do so they can quickly retake control of the car. Uber rules. Uber was having some problems. In the next segment, in our last segment, I'm going to talk about where we go from here, because I want to talk about what some of the other automakers are doing as a result of this. In one case, Toyota pressed pause, but not all of them did. And that's something to know. When we come back, we take a peek at where the industry goes from here, now and in the future. This is Roadworthy Drive.
Roadworthy Drive with Ken Chester is America's premier automotive news and information talk show.
The challenge with having so much information to talk about is that I have to talk faster than I'd really like to try to get it all in, and still just scratching the surface of the research that we can talk about.
We could do 2 hours right now easily.
Okay,
Yeah.
3 very simple things. It doesn't matter where his hands were.
Yeah, it does.
No. Professor after professor, specialist after specialist have said there is no way that a human-controlled driver could have avoided what happened that night
But stop.
based on the camera footage.
You're missing the point. The point is that the state laws, well, not so much in Arizona, but
Right.
California,
in California.
you are required. There's a certain protocol for you to be behind the wheel.
Mm-hmm.
They're not just sticking someone behind the wheel, just, do what you feel, and then if something goes wrong, take
Read
over.
a comic book,
No.
eat some pizza.
The bottom line is there's a protocol. If you're not following the protocol, that's problematic. Okay? No argument with you that even protocol wouldn't save this, but if you're not following protocol, you're being pushed to come up with a solution because the company's shortcutting, then you are putting together stuff that is just ripe. Their technology was not ready for prime time.
Okay, and you are basing that off of a New York Times article where they said 2 people close to the case who could not say who they were.
That was regards to Uber's incident rate.
Right,
Not the
and
whole
then they-
thing, excuse me.
And
Not
they
the whole thing.
rushed it.
Yeah.
Okay. See, and my thing is that I have a huge issue taking to fact when news outlets decide to go with a story that they're not
Okay,
able to
okay.
verify.
They didn't say they didn't verify it. You said that.
Okay, how are they able to verify without the people being named and without the article?
A lot of stories are done on background where people will confirm facts without being quoted.
Yep.
And a lot of times they are also confirmed, they also report, and then they have to recant later.
No,
on
not a
page,
lot of times.
17.
No, sorry, not a lot of times.
Well, here's my other question in this whole thing. And this is probably going to go back to rulemaking again.
Mm-hmm.
How do I, as a trained driver, car hits a pedestrian?
Yeah.
If it's what I'm going to call normal everyday driving situation, I'm sitting in that seat, I'm responsible.
Right. Yeah, there's...
Car is driving itself.
Yep.
Is it the car's problem or my problem? Even if I take over for that split nanosecond before that individual gets hit.
There's been a
That's
couple-
actually easy.
Okay.
Right now, laws haven't changed. I can't speak for Arizona specifically, but everywhere else, if there's a person in that seat, that person is liable. That is state law until it changes. And that would have to be state law because that's insurance-based as opposed to federal law. Mm-hmm. Because it's a state law piece that would fit in to liability and injury, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's easy. That's not a problem. My bigger problem is, and, you know, as Sasha said, you got a system that is designed to react faster in multiples. You know, pick your multiple than the average human driver.
Right.
Something goes wrong. The way that a human being processes things, even if you're quick, you're still too slow. Even if you were on it and you responded in maybe 5 seconds, it's an eternity in electronics. 5 seconds is roughly what? 5,000 nanoseconds? They measure this stuff
in nanoseconds.
In nanoseconds.
You know, I used to, when I put myself through college, I drove a school bus. And we were always told at 20 miles an hour, it takes 59 feet to stop a 30-foot school bus.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
59 feet is an eternity.
Yep.
I'll go you one better. At 60 miles an hour, you're covering 88 feet a second.
Yep.
So if you take 3 seconds, you've already covered over 200 feet. You're 2/3 away of a foot. You know, I believe that was yards. I said feet, but
Are you talking yards?
No, I am talking feet. 88 feet a second. You've already covered 200 feet in 3 seconds. My larger question, there are two. Number one, in this technology, other than the low speed, the thing gets confused, I don't know what to do situation, where we chronicled some of that in San Francisco with the Chevy Bolt.
Yep.
But it was low speed. It could not navigate around a taco truck. Taco truck was in the middle of the road, or to the side of the road, and the thing just, it freaked out. It couldn't do anything. I can see that. But at speed, yeah, your safety driver, I'm sorry, is useless. At speed, if you are going faster than 15 miles an hour, safety driver is useless. Even if they are primed, ready, totally tuned in because of the delay time. Even the fastest driver is still too slow. And that's assuming everything is perfect. And that's a problem.
Yeah. Sasha, you were going to say something?
No, I was. I'll bring it up.
I got one more. One of the things that came up during my research was there are no standards in terms of the effectiveness of the radars, the LiDAR. You know, there's no set standard. In other words, that the LiDAR should be able to read an object 150 feet down the road. We don't know that we're even talking apples to apples.
Okay, but to me, and I would honestly consider myself an average consumer. Okay? I hear all this information. My first thought is, why you got to go back and do a whole lot more testing if you're having trouble with this, when you can't tell me that this radar, LiDAR, whatever you want to call it, the sensors and everything, are not going to pick up things in enough time to stop and slow you down.
Here's what we don't know. What we don't know, what we need is we need standards for these to that all of these, for all companies, meet the same standard. Your headlights had to meet a standard of being able to illuminate at so many lumens so far down the road.
Well, yeah, and so did your seat belts and a whole lot of other things.
That's what we need. If you go there, that's simple. That's legislative. That's federal. You do that as part of your federal motor vehicle safety standards, which there are hundreds of those, by the way.
Yep.
That cover everything. Brakes, the positioning of the choices on your automatic transmission are legislative. The tires, your dashboard, everything legislated. That's what you need.
Okay, 8 minutes, 50 seconds.
Okay, I'm not ready for you yet. Hold on. Got to reset this. Here, I'm there.
See, this is what happens when you don't have passionate people in the studio with you.
I know that's right.
Boring stuff,
Yeah, it gets boring.
My other thing, to go completely off base, is one, we've already had the. I'm interested to see what the.
Did you see this?
AI. Yeah. Okay. What the AI is going to learn from the accident. If it is constantly learning, we've already had I was able to find 2 or 3 articles that they're actually delving past the tragedy that happened and actually going straight to the technology. And so it's going to be very interesting how the computer read that whole situation. How the computer, now that it's able to go back, analyze, and it's able to see that maybe it picked it up as, just using an example, as, fog. Maybe it just thought that it was a leaf. Maybe it didn't register it at all when it could have seen the woman. Or I think they were talking about the bike that she was actually pushing. It should have registered that there was another metal object, something like that, or rather the way that it bounces off. Mm-hmm. So it would be very interesting to me to find out what the computer, what it actually saw when it was seeing, obviously, what we couldn't see. Because anybody who saw the video, you didn't see her until bam. But the computer, what the computer saw, how it interpreted that, and then how at what point did the computer say, oh, darn. Do you know? I mean,
well, few things. One, AI and the computer are only as good as the sensors. We don't know how effective the sensors are because there are no sensor standards. So Waymo may have better sensors than Uber, who's doing it on the cheap, maybe. Ford and GM may be a whole different configuration system. Mm-hmm. What we need first is a standard array of sensors with standard that anytime you use them, you know that each of these arrays, no matter what system you use, is going to read something at so many feet in so many lumens of light, et cetera, et cetera. That's number one. Number two, your AI is only as good as its interface. And she's rolling her eyes at me.
Yeah.
Well,
completely rolling my eyes.
Well, deal with this for a minute.
Go ahead.
Your AI is only as good as what it interfaces with. In cases of Tesla, I'm giving an example. One Tesla vehicle and what it reads and learns is uploaded into the Tesla collective. All Teslas know it. So there is an experience. We don't know how Uber is going to process it, whether it is a machine and it's resident on that particular vehicle, whether they have a repository that they can crunch numbers, or whether they got to take that information and then put it into a system. We don't know. So on 2 points to what Sasha was saying. One, if the sensors are not good or were weak, then it's going to impair the ability of the computer to analyze what happened. Two, it's only as good for the whole of Uber's project if that information is able to be interfaced with the other vehicles as a learning experience that they learn from it.
Well, and I think one of the
and we don't know that either.
And the one question that I have that just sticks in my mind, and I'll probably get in trouble for saying this.
Go for it.
How many more people have to die before somebody finally says enough, puts a hold on this until we can get the regulations in place?
Not going to happen.
Yeah, no.
That's not going to happen.
I mean, again,
we're already 3 to 4 years ahead of the regulation, Jack.
Yeah.
And
no, I'm sorry. The rulemaking.
Rulemaking's already out there, but rulemaking doesn't have the force of law.
Well, but don't you think at some point, I hope this doesn't happen, okay? I'm going to say this again. I hope it doesn't happen. But if you start having 2 or 3 accidents like this, you're going to start seeing a bunch of people raising all kinds of holy heck. And they're going to want to shut down until you can actually say every car has to have this kind of LiDAR, this has to have this radar, these sensors.
Yeah, but you don't, if you apply that kind of blanket technology, like every car needs to have this particular system, then you're going to be more restrictive and more limiting to the amount of technology that they're going to, because it's constantly evolving.
It is.
Sensors and their technology.
But what you're going to need is not so much the system, but what the system is capable of detecting at so many feet, in so much light, under so many conditions. That's where you're going. That is going to be the conversation. The problem is technology is never clean and neat. Doesn't matter what it is. When cars were invented, there were a lot of accidents. when planes were invented, there were a lot of accidents. Planes don't crash now like they did when they first came out. They just don't. Nobody wants to die because of faulty technology. Let's be clear here. I'm not advocating that. However, as technology evolves, there are problems, there are glitches, things happen. All we need to do is legislate standards for its performance, not the system, but performance of the system is where the legislation needs to happen.
Okay.
Okay, 8 minutes.
For 8:50.
8:50. Let's do it. We're all happy here. Oh, boy. So much love in this studio. I can't even stand it.
Just smile.
This is one of those shows you're going to want to tell your friends that they need to go to the website. They're going to need to want to hear it again. And more importantly, they're going to want to watch the video of behind the scenes for the conversations we've been having during the breaks. If you're just tuning in, this is the last part of this special hour of RoadWorthy Drive. I'm Ken Chester, your host, and we're focused on the self-driving vehicle industry in the light of the first recorded death of a pedestrian by a self-driving car. We are a passionate bunch here at RoadWorthy Drive.
No.
We've had a lot of conversation between the breaks with respect to regulation, yes, no, restricting the industry, how can we reduce deaths, a lot of things. And it's unfortunate that we don't have the time to cover it all, but I will encourage you, we do produce a video on YouTube as we record the show. We call it RoadWorthy Drive Behind the Scenes. This is one of those times that to get the full appreciation for both our passion and our concerns about the autonomous driving industry, you're going to want to watch our YouTube video. You can find it, and you'll be able to find it later this week on RoadWorthyDrive.com. Trust me, you're going to want to watch it. The question now, with the time we have remaining, is where do we go from here? My larger question is, if anything, this Uber accident calls into question, and I have to ask, what good is a safety driver, even if they were totally attentive, monitoring a vehicle at speed, barring a full cascading failure of the system that just died completely? Barring that, what good are you if it, in this case, maybe failed to read? 40 miles an hour. It's like that. By the time you processed it, you would have already hit whatever it is you were going to hit, or the incident would have already happened by the time you figured out what to do.
Well, and see, it's one of those things where, is it a liability issue? I mean, do they need that person behind the wheel for lack of a better word, as a fallout person? I mean, in this kind of situation.
As a scapegoat?
Yeah.
Yes.
But it seems to me that Uber is backing the gentleman that was behind the wheel.
Yeah, but it's not just an Uber problem. Every single one of these companies that, whether it's California or Arizona or somewhere else, if there are vehicles on the road at this point, because technically, unless you're in Arizona, autonomous vehicles are not legal per se. In our state, they're not legal or illegal. However, in our state, if you're sitting in that driver's seat in that vehicle in autonomous mode, you have an accident, it's your problem.
Okay, now, here's the other question. And guys, please correct me if I'm wrong. What I saw this week was the police investigation has already decided that it wasn't the driver's fault.
Right.
It wasn't the car's fault, because nobody could read it in time. Boom, there she was.
Right. And I mean, I don't want to be the person to say this, but she was walking at night in dark clothes in an open road with I didn't see any light
outside of the crosswalk.
outside of the crosswalk. I mean, can we just really just acknowledge that?
I'm going to wait for the National Traffic Safety Bureau's report.
Okay.
The feds have experience recreating this stuff.
Right.
They're coming to see. They don't take a lot of automobile accidents per se. They've had a special interest in incidents involving semi-autonomous or fully autonomous vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to see, based on their deep expertise and many years of experience, what they have to say.
I still am going to repeat something I said during the break. I cannot wait to hear how the computer registered that whole situation.
You may never know, because in Arizona, they're not required to tell you.
No, they're not. But I am very, very
I
interested.
doubt very much. The only way you're going to get close to that is the NTSB's report. That's about as close as you're going to get. Uber's not going to disclose it. Talking about other companies, where we go from here.
Okay.
Nissan said they don't plan to change a thing. Honda said they're not changing either. Now, it's important to note, Honda's system is different from what Uber uses. Toyota, on the other hand, took a pause. They do some joint work together. I thought that Toyota's reason was interesting. They said they halted their automated driving tests in the United States this week because of, and I quote, the possible emotional effect on its test drivers. Not even making this up.
That's actually kind of sweet.
Yeah. Anyway. Yeah. And I mentioned that Honda's system is different. Nissan plans to equip 20 models in 20 markets with autonomous driving tech by 2022. I'll let that settle.
Okay, the technology is going to be there, but it may or may not be used. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
May I also mention that since October 2016, every Tesla off the line has a fully autonomous
That's what I
technology
thought. Yeah.
buried in the car, not activated. Not activated. So we're clear. I can't say this enough. Tesla Autopilot is not full autonomy. It is not a self-driving car in a strict sense, that it has the ability to act on its own without driver input. It's not, never was designed that way. Marketing got ahead of itself.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, I blame that on marketing. That's what happens when things go too well.
Is that kind of like Ludicrous Bean?
Oh, did you have to?
I did.
Did you have to?
I'm just saying.
Did you have to?
I mean,
Not going to do it.
Thank you. Thank you.
but it was a.
Well, the thing is, I'm still trying to get him to buy my lunch.
There you go. There you go. See, BMW said they're not changing anything either.
Did Ford and GM say anything?
No. And we haven't heard from Sasha's favorite, Fiat Chrysler.
I don't think you're going to hear anything from them.
Oh, okay. No. We did hear. Did we not cover that? I love that he was just like, you know what? We underappreciated the value of electric vehicles and the self-driving technology.
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was just.
Is that what Sergio said this week?
That's exactly. what
Translation: we ain't got the billions of dollars to play catch up.
No.
Which is what I've been saying from the get now for almost 2 years.
Yep.
It takes to be a player in this game. Bear in mind, GM plunked down just for cruise automation, just that piece of it, $1 billion just for that. Not to mention everything else they're doing. Well, folks, we've come to the close of another hour. Be sure to tune in next time when we do it all again. On behalf of the RoadWorthy Drive crew, thanks for listening. This has been RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester.
RoadWorthy Drive with Ken Chester is a copyrighted presentation of the RoadWorthy Drive Radio Network. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or any other use is prohibited without the written consent of the Motor News Media Corporation.
Before we leave this hour,
No.
wait a minute.
Don't I get a chance to like actually say something? Because you did claim that they were my favorite company. Because I got something to say about that.
Come on.
Chrysler is going to be out there. You're not going to hear a word about them on this. Just crickets. They're going to make fast cars. They're going to make loud cars for as long as they've got people that are willing to buy fast and loud cars.
It's called taking their money to the bank.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Failing.
Taking their money
in the long term.
To the bank.
Short-term goals.
They're going to be bought by a Chinese company, mark my words.
You think so?
Yep. Anyway.
Go ahead.
And I think it will be coming late this year or the first part of next.
First part of next. And it's going to be a firestorm when it happens. But we'll talk about that.
Can I buy Jeep? Can we buy Jeep? Please? Please?
You got about $35 billion?
Can you talk to the suits?
The suits ain't even going to go near that. They're going to laugh at me.
Now?
They're going to laugh at me.
Yeah. They got other problems.
Yeah.
Bigger problems.
What are you going to read to us today?
As if you didn't have enough to worry about your autonomous car, would you believe that too much sun could be a thing?
Yeah.
The threat comes from solar storms, those occasional eruptions of vast amount of energy that can cause a massive spike in geomagnetic activity and radiation. They can sever the data connection between a vehicle's global position system and a satellite's to supply location information.
Let me put this to you.
Your car can get lost.
Another way. Every March and every September or every October, you're going to have issues.
Actually, more than that. Two things, and I'll end with this. One, 3 years ago, our government parked a satellite 1 million miles in deep space, and I'm going to quote this article because I thought it was cute, and ordered it to engage in an indefinite staring contest with the sun. When solar storms are coming, the U.S. Space Weather Prediction Center acts as a warning buoy and gives a heads up to utilities, airlines, and other industries that rely heavily on the airborne data. Generally, Earth gets a notice 30 to 60 minutes before the charged particles start wreaking havoc. Now, I'll leave you this that you may not have known because I did not know this. Engineers, they may not figure out how to read dark objects moving in the middle of the night away from crosswalks, but they got this space stuff nailed. One of the things, more remote intelligence, such as the distance to the next interstate exit, is stored in the high-definition maps that are regularly updated in the vehicle. And that's kind of like, that's what Tesla does. That means a Tesla relying on its autopilot software or a Waymo vehicle shuttling passengers around Phoenix won't need GPS to safely stay on the road.
That sounds so
adorable.
Awesome.
There you go.
So awesome.
One more thing to worry about, people. On behalf of the very energized and opinionated Roadworthy Drive crew.
And informed.
For Jack, Sasha, and myself, thanks for watching. We've got another hour coming. May even be as intimate and intense as this one. Tune in, find out. Till then, see you later.
Bye.
Bye.